Hi, this is Jennie Walker and welcome to Closet Conversations. Today it's the next part, it's part 4 in how to open a consignment shop, and we are going to talk about customers. How to find customers and who exactly are these customers that are shopping in your store. So I was really surprised just because, again, new at this, that customers weren't just people who like to shop consignment. What I mean by that is I just assumed everyone else in the consignment shop was shopping for themselves, just like I was. But it turns out the kind of customers you get in a consignment shop are very diverse, and it's an interesting group of people. I know from my own experience, beyond the typical consignment customers shopping for themselves, looking for dresses for themselves to wear, you have what I call different categories of customers. One of those are the collectors. These are individuals that collect particular brands or items that are vintage, and they're always on the hunt for those. So they're in consignment shops all over looking for particular brands. I've met a number of people, for example, looking for the Perry Ellis Space Age 60s jewelry and clothing, things like that. So it's very, very specific. Someone else who's a collector, I want anything Comme des Garçons that you might have. Very, very brand specific. And these are people that a lot of them, they're in fashion already. Perhaps they're in fashion school and studying, but they're very, very serious about finding particular brands, and they're willing to pay for them, willing to pay specific, very high dollars to get things that are missing from their collection. You also have the collectors who are from museums, for example. Now, a lot of museum curators aren't personally going around, but they have people that work with them that have their eyes out. Stores are in touch with various museums about interesting pieces that might come in. That's certainly something that we have done. I took the initiative to contact a couple of museums, fashion museums, to let them know about things that had come in. They were quite happy to hear from me. While nothing I sent them was something they were interested in acquiring or seeing, it was great to start that relationship. You also have what's called branding teams, and this was really new for me. People who were in because they were looking for inspiration. Now, that was a head scratcher for me for a while because I'm like, what are they talking about? What do they mean inspiration? I just don't get it. But I've come to understand exactly what they're doing. They are major brands, and they have to have new cycles of clothing coming out each season. And not only are they looking at what's out in the regular marketplace, they're looking back in time. They're looking for inspiration from past decades, past seasons, past designers to give them some ideas about things they want to make, in the future. So I'm always excited about those people who come in because they do buy, but oftentimes they don't. I mean, they just love to look around and take pictures of things and really get excited about things that are in there. And it's really, really fun to be around people who love clothes and fashion because they really get excited about each piece that they see. And that's really thrilling for me to see as an owner, to see that kind of behavior, because that's how I feel. That's how excited I am when I'm out. And as a matter of fact, when I lived in New York, and I would go to Bergdorf Goodman a lot, and occasionally dragging my girlfriends with me, and we were solving all the world's problems going through Bergdorf, looking at clothes and talking about boyfriends and dating and just whatever else you're talking about. But we would go through, and I would just look at just drool over these pieces, like the construction or the material or something architectural about it. And I'd just pick up something and I'd look at my girlfriend and I'd say, you know what? There's just nothing wrong with that. And that's how I would express it when I would see something that I loved. And that was like all the time, because so many things out there that really, really are beautiful to look at. You also have stylists. Now, stylists who are working with regular people or artists or, people in the limelight. The stylists are looking for things that are unique and interesting for projects. And they're not always looking for things that are current. They're looking for a particular style or image or look, and so they're going to have to go back in time to see what's out there, to get things that are truly, truly interesting. And all these music videos that are out there, and these photo shoots and advertising, whether it's something as basic as an advertisement for a phone company, or if it's could be a luxurious spread in a fashion magazine. No matter what it is, they're using stylists who are taking care of the look and feel for that shoot, and they need to be out there finding that product. And I've worked with a number of stylists directly with product from the store, so that's always really exciting when it gets used. Photographers slash stylists. There's a lot of photographers, certainly those who are newer in their career, and those that just they like this part of the job, that are in there looking for things for photo shoots. So that's always really interesting. Other shop owners, a lot of people self-identify themselves. Many people don't, that own or run consignment shops or are resellers. They're out and about, that are coming in and checking out your store. May or may not be interested in buying, but they certainly want to see what's going on in there and how it compares, I guess, in the industry. So other shop owners and resellers. Now, we've sold to a number of resellers, and I'm quite happy to do it. People who have their own vintage stores. I mean, they have to get this inventory somewhere, and they're out and about, trolling and looking and searching for things that are special, in all kinds of places, including other consignment shops. So oftentimes they're kind of relegated to the clearance rack simply because of the price point. They can't make any money if something is, priced too much. So that I completely understand. But we've moved a number of units, a significant number of units, to resellers who I found out later from some of them, did really well in selling them to their customers. And I think it speaks to the fact that every store has a different customer base, and they've developed a different look and feel and a reputation for having certain kinds of clothes. So what might not sell in a store that I'm involved with could easily sell in someone else's. So it doesn't mean the piece isn't wonderful. It just means that the customer base didn't exist, for me, for a particular piece, if someone else is able to buy it and resell it to someone that they're working with. So we highly recommend working with other resellers or people, because if you don't have that customer, why not sell to them? Then I have what's called the curious category, people just walking by and they see a store and they don't necessarily know it's a consignment shop. And so many times people would come in our store and they'd really have a big question mark in the tone of their voice. They're like, is this new? Is this used? What is this? And then I'll explain to them it's consignment, luxury consignment, and many times they're just surprised. They're like, I didn't understand that it was used, because we're so stringent on making sure we don't take in anything that isn't new. As a matter of fact, we've gotten to the point now that if the shoe isn't new in the box, we don't even take it in anymore. And that, let me tell you, still means we're inundated with shoes. We took in 25 pair of size 7 Ferragamo shoes from one person. And, I felt like a Ferragamo outlet there for the day. We posted the picture on Instagram. But, if I never took in another shoe that wasn't brand new in the box, I'd still be turning away designer shoes, because there's so much out there. And I know a lot of men are always surprised to hear that, but that's how women shop. So also the customer is the online customer. And I think this is really, really important, because the customer in the physical store and the customer online, obviously the online customer isn't limited by where they are geographically. We have customers all over the world for our store at Walker Viden Luxury Consignment, because we sell on eBay through their global shipping program. So you basically can just send wherever that you're allowed to ship all over the world. There might be one or two places that you can't get through to, but it's a wonderful, wonderful program, and we've gotten a lot of repeat customers and really good customers from overseas, and we just love that. So So that's pretty much, I think, the range of customers and how to get those customers. I think a lot of times, we've talked about the social media and the advertising in another podcast, but there's a lot of word of mouth that goes on, from one customer having a good experience and buying something that they got a lot of compliments on. Then people ask them, well, where did you get it? And they're like, well, Walker Viden Luxury Consignment. We've had people tag us on Instagram, but certainly customers who see the items, who see the unique clothing, that are seen in it is certainly one way. Collectors, taking the initiative to reach out to people that are involved in museums, fashion museums, all around the country, even the world for that matter, on your own is one way to start those relationships. Branding firms and branding teams. I mean, this is something that you can do your research and find out who these people are. I forgot to mention designers. People like the Design Guild, the Costume Design Guild, and I forgot to mention that in important categories. We've had a number of people from the Design Guild in our store, and people who are costume designers that are looking for specific vintage pieces. And a lot of this is real vintage that's getting used. It's not always getting recreated, say like a Titanic, where I think they recreated everything from scratch. But yeah, I mean, that's a huge market there. So that is something you can proactively look for, the costume designers that are working in film and television. In terms of stylists, there's a lot of stylists that are out there in social media that you can read about. And I think proactively letting them know about you is a really wonderful thing. Other shop owners, I just think on their own, they're going to seek you out, other resellers. Now, one thing that did come up is that I learned from meeting a lot of people in this vintage industry that there are people who do this thing called, they have these vintage shows that I didn't know about until this year, where it's basically an entire show of like a couple hundred a couple hundred shop owners all in one place. So instead of having to go, let's say, to all over LA or all over Pasadena, shop by shop by shop by shop, you can go to one of these shows. One's called Pickwick, one's called A Current Affair, these vintage shows, and see them all in one place. And I went to my first show this year with a friend of mine, and I was just kind of fascinated because there it all was. And they were all very unique. I mean, their niches, like one person was all denim, vintage denim. Another person was all vintage designer. Another person, was, all vintage something else. So they all had their niches, and I was really impressed with the quality of things that were there. Now, I went the second day, and what I understand is these same group of people I talked about earlier, especially these brand teams and stylists and designers, like I think Jeremy Scott was featured at A Current Affair earlier this year. They had a complete vintage Moschino event. Is that they go to these things because they want to be inspired. They want to see what has come before and be reminded of that. And this is a great way to hit a lot of things all at once. So in terms of having your own pop-up shop there, that is something that that I have looked into, and I've talked to them about how that works. And there's, 2 or 3 of these shows that travel around the country, and that could be something, again, another way to get the word out about who you are and develop relationships by actually putting your stuff on the road, so to speak. So yeah, that came up as well. I feel like opening up a storefront is a bit of build a field and they will come. And I think the thing to do as you go through your natural organic growth of people finding you as a new business, that going online is the single most important thing that you can do to get immediate customers. And what I've realized is that, I've asked myself, is it a shortage of customers or is it a shortage of consigners when you're building a business? And I've really thought long and hard about this, but because of the internet, and because you can click a few buttons and get something online for the whole world to see, I feel like it's a shortage of consigners. I think everyone in this industry is struggling with supply and how to get a consistent and constant and ever-growing, ever-better supply of luxury goods to sell. Because the minute you put it online, it's out there for everyone to find. In addition to the online selling platforms, if you go back to the social media, I think that is a terrific way to get customers to be able to know about your store. Hashtagging on Instagram, posting on Pinterest. And eBay has an easy just click, 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 and your listing is pushed to Twitter. It's pushed to Facebook. It's pushed out to social media. So all of those tools combined, I think, are great ways to get customers when you're first starting out, because there is the old days of just buying a customer list. I don't know how effective that would be in this kind of business. I mean, it's a very specific customer that's looking for you. Those are the people who are going online, they're Googling, they're saying, where are the consignment shops in my area, and they're finding you. So listing yourself in all of the social media platforms, in all the online directories, is just a really great way to do that. One other thing I would mention in terms of getting customers is I actually belong to the organization called NARTS, N-A-R-T-S, the Association of Resale Professionals. It might be a little different, the name, but that is basically the trade association for this industry. And it's mostly, Goodwills, thrift shops, Salvation Armies is one small part of it. But then the bulk of the members are owners of consignment shops and managers, I think, potentially managers of consignment shops. So it is a huge resource. They have conferences once a year. But that is something in terms of networking, getting the word out, learning more about how to promote and advertise your business is a wonderful resource. I attended one of their conferences several years before I had a shop when I was just really thinking about it. It was such a wonderful, wonderful event. It was a regional event in Atlanta, Georgia, and I got so much out of that. So that's another resource as you're building relationships in this business that I wanted to mention. So that's it. Just a brief overview of customers for when you're starting your consignment shop. I hope this was helpful. Again, this is Jennie Walker, owner of JennieGirl's Closet and co-owner of Walker Viden Luxury Consignment in Pasadena, California. If you'd like more information on me, both of those entities are online with websites and on all the social media. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give a thumbs up and subscribe and give it a ranking. If I get enough rankings, then it'll help this podcast show up in search results, which would be a fantastic thing as I work to get the word out online about what I'm doing here. Again, this is Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.